It is an 8. We got 2 minutes, man. Who did it? I'm really glad my husband. This is nasty. Yeah, it's the visibility, isn't it? 1%.
Oh, yeah, come off of that, what, 44 bridge over 41 there, you couldn't even see the lights on there.
Yeah.
That's gotta be
Yeah, I
quarter mile.
on the interstate, it was like.
Actually, I think you'd be a T today, and I don't even think you'd be a. Like, could even get 1,000 feet out of there.
I think it's 0% right? It's minimum, not landable. Maybe he's off. Not landable. He said scratched out for a week. I was gonna go with him, but I had all these meetings. Scratched out all week.
I think that they have this.
I think I'm. Was like. Oh.
It's funny, I was shocked. It's like they ran down to Florida, rated for the holidays, so they were in your program. Covered weather there. So,
Who?
John,
Oh,
The other thing is a quarter mile visibility.
is it a quarter?
we drove through there.
Where do you get good stuff in that? Depending on your airplane.
Exactly, right. I always looked out our window and my like.
Mr. Norton, can you hear us? You're the only one on Zoom. Can you hear us? Mike Norton. Okay, he's probably muted. Well, we'll just assume he can hear us. You're recording.
Okay, we'll bring the Aviation Committee meeting to order on Wednesday, January 4th. Thank you all for coming. Appreciate it very much. First item, approve minutes of December 7th, 2022 meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion on those minutes? All those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2, public comment on agenda items or any item under the jurisdiction of this committee. Anybody have anything, or you guys in the back row, you want to wait and speak later? Or speak now, whatever you choose. Just raise your hand and we'll. Okay.
We did nothing to curtail their right of free speech.
No,
They're able to say whatever they want.
you guys want to talk now or you want to?
Watching our meeting last night.
No.
No, I didn't watch that one.
Yeah. Okay. Item 3, airport director's report. Item A, East GA hangar project update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Currently, we've got the contractors have both signed their contracts for the project, both the civil work and the building work. We're now routing those for final signature on the bond paperwork. So everything is set to go there essentially. Just waiting on one signature. So as that is now complete, the contractual phase, we're moving on towards scheduling the pre-construction meeting. And so that is looking like it'll happen sometime in the last week in January. So we need to start coordinating with the contractors, the air traffic control tower, and any affected tenants over there on the east side that are going to be affected at some point during the project. It'll be fairly minimal as far as the airfield effect goes, but the intersection of Juliet and Echo at some point will be closed, just as they need to reconstruct that little intersection. But we don't know when that'll happen just yet. But as that comes closer, as far as any airfield impact, we'll have a notice out to our tenants that are going to be affected by that, or all tenants. So we do anticipate the civil work on the project to begin in February. The civil contractor again is R&R Washing Materials out of Ripon. And the building contractor is Cardinal Construction on the Fond du Lac. So there's a fair amount of civil work that needs to get done first, namely demolition of the old asphalt apron, and also removal of the 5 hangars that are in the footprint of the site. Then after that, earthwork, grading, stormwater work, and then they can start working on building stuff. So with that, everything is moving along for a February start date on the hangar project.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Item B, Altus development update.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. On Volatus, so they're our EV toll developer that we signed a lease with probably about 7-8 months ago now, this past spring. We've been working with them on and off now for about a year. It's been a bit slow going lately with really what we're waiting on is the FAA to kind of flesh out their final guidance on EV toll developments and what they're coining the term vertiport, which really is a nice way to say landing pad, like a helipad, but just for electric aircraft. And so right now there still is no EV toll aircraft that is certified by the FAA to fly and to operate commercially. Until that happens, I think we're gonna be a little bit behind the power curve on their guidance coming along for what vertiports are going to absolutely have to look like. Right now, they have interim guidance out via engineering brief that they've put out earlier this year, and then they revised once, I think, in the early fall. We're up to speed on what the engineering brief says, which is to say, it doesn't say a lot as far as what a vertiport is going to look like. It's got some basic parameters, and it's got some basic offsets from established runways, buildings, and that sort of thing. And the site that we did select and lease a footprint of land over here to our east of the terminal site, the far east of the terminal site, still meets all those requirements, still meets all those parameters. We actually had a meeting with our Bureau of Aeronautics reps yesterday to get that back up to speed on the project. And essentially trying to figure out what the next steps are. Are we going to have to wait till the final FAA guidance comes out, which we are hearing isn't going to be sometime until 2024, via an advisory circular, which their FAA advisory circulars define quite a lot of things as far as design and operations at airports. But it will be a brand new advisory circular just for vertiports. That's still in the works with FAA. And right now, the BOA is probably about as new on this as everyone else. So there was a lot of education yesterday in our meeting with them. They said, hey, send us what you normally would send us, and that would be in the form of an ALP insert page, which is our airport layout plan drawing set. We have about 20 pages that depict the entire airport, all the different layouts and designs of existing and future developments. So right now that eVTOL site is not shown on our ALP, but we've been waiting for the dimensions and the site layout to kind of be fleshed out finally before we go forward on that. Volatus is at the point where everything, again, like we've evaluated, points to that it would be meeting all those requirements that are out there today. So we're going to get the coordinates from them as far as their landing pad in the building, start the process of giving an ALP insert, and then put it in the BOA and the FAA's hands. So we'll see what happens after that, because the BOA wasn't really sure how the FAA or how they're supposed to proceed as the first agency to review something like that will go. But I guess we'll find out as we go. So we're trying to move that forward, and Volatus is very eager to move that forward. They've kind of continued to say we're the first ones in the US as far as a vertiport on an airport that we're aware of. And so that said, it's a new thing for the FAA still, and then their guidance systems and their advisor circular finally. So that's all that said. If the footprint does expand, which their new layout has it a little bit larger than it was when we originally executed the land lease, we can come back for a land lease amendment. But until we are 100% certain of what it will look like and all the dimensions, we're not going to try to put that cart before the horse. So that's my update.
Questions?
Talk more about maybe what are the elements that you're waiting for, like I understand that we have to be this far away from the runways, things like that, we're in good shape. Are there other things that you're waiting on guidance for that could make this a no-go? Or is it like how deep the concrete has to be for what's it called? Vertiport. I mean, for the landing pad. Sure. What's the whatever for it to land on, or yeah, Are there things that could make this not work here?
I don't think there'd be anything that would make it not work here, just as to say it should be coexistent with every airport, be able to be compatible with almost every airport in the country. That said, there's still a lot of unknowns, and the FAA has said, and we actually talked with our FAA staff a couple of months ago directly about it. You know, we're on a national level, I'm trying to read the tea leaves of where this is going. Their stance has been, we don't have any certified aircraft yet. And so they design around a certified aircraft or certified aircraft type, which is no different than essentially their approach to how they design runways at airports. You know, their length, their width, those dimensions, their of course depth of pavement. And so they're kind of saying, okay, and that's a whole different arm of FAA that we deal with, that's in the aircraft certification. But until that happens, again, I don't think we'll know. We can't really say what those unknowns are going to be. They may decide that it has to be larger than what they're prescribing right now, as far as the landing pad and then the buffer zone around the landing pad for safety. So those are some of the unknowns right now. We can't really say.
But you're pretty confident whatever they say will be able to still house in this facility.
We have ample amount of land over there on that site that really isn't designated for any other use at this point in time. So I'm pretty confident that site we selected should work. Even if we had to shift it to the north 100 feet or 200 feet, we have that availability. Perfect.
Thanks.
Yeah, a quick question about, you were talking about they don't have the airport or the airplane report. So but building prototypes for this, I mean, what manufacturer is, I mean, do you have a concept of like size or whom or, you know, and that's, I mean, I'm assuming that someone is at this point.
Absolutely. There's many manufacturers that are going through the design development stages and then some that are already going through the certification process with the FAA. Probably the front runner of that has been Joby Aviation. So it's JOBY. If you Google that or put that on YouTube, you can look at their aircraft. They're more of a tilt rotor design, so they take on vertically and can fly on a wing level. And so there's a number of them. I mean, I couldn't put a number to it. I don't know exactly how many companies are out there designing these, but I've heard that's close to 100.
We're not talking huge, I mean, you know, I mean, they're gonna be certain wave size. Well, I don't know. Never know. I'll look up Joby.
Yeah, Joby is a big one. There's a Whisk. There's another one called Whisk, which is kind of different. Joby is focused right now, at least initially, on piloted aircraft. And Whisk is another company out there that's actually gone out and said they're going to go straight to autonomous. So, which means no piloting.
And Whisk, you said?
And Whisk Aero, I believe it is. So those are a couple of ones that are out there, pretty mainstream in the media as far as eVTOL goes. But you know, until they get through the FAA's process of certification, which takes quite a lot of time to certify new aircraft, and for good reason, because it's really an unproven technology as far as transporting 4 passengers plus baggage point to point.
Items, taxiway Alpha A reconstruction, final phase capital project presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is a first presentation in a number of presentations about this 2023 capital project request. And so Cameron's pulling up a diagram there on the screen and on Zoom, which depicts the diagram that is also within your packet right after the memo, or right on the back side of the memo there. So this capital project would reconstruct the final portion of taxiway Alpha that is yet to be reconstructed. The taxiway Alpha is the full parallel taxiway to our primary runway, which is 1836. It actually goes further than the length of the runway all the way up to the north side of the airport. And both, well, I should say, in 2020, we reconstructed the piece of taxiway Alpha all the way on the south end from Alpha 6, which is south end runway 36, which is off that diagram to the south, up to, if you look on the screen, you can see the yellow portion of Cecil not in color. Yep, there you go. So we reconstructed, actually, if you want to scroll down a little bit. Perfect. So we reconstructed the area of taxiway Alpha that is to the south of this project scope, all the way down to the south end runway 1836. That was done in 2020. It was about $8.5 million project, of which we received 90% grant funding from the FAA to do that project. That included a full reconstruction of that concrete taxiway, upgraded LED lighting, improved drainage on both sides of the taxiway, and a number of other improvements. So that said, there remains to be in yellow on the corridor of just the straight taxiway, which is taxiway alpha. Remains to be about 2,000 linear feet of concrete taxiway that needs to be reconstructed. One of the biggest things we've been waiting on, why we didn't just do that in the 2020 project, we've been waiting on reconstructing this piece. And I know Mary Beth and Kobe been on the committee a little bit longer, but we've been waiting on the master plan to kind of flesh out all the things that are going to happen or going to be the FAA accepted alternatives in our master plan for the connector taxiways and runway configuration all along this corridor. That said, we already do have our preferred alternatives, and we've been sort of battling it out with the FAA a little bit. I don't want to delve too much into the master plan at this point. We'll have another update for that in the next month or two. But we're going to get resolution on all these intersections in the next few months. We've been going at this for quite some time now, but it is to say that that last piece of Alpha really badly needs to be reconstructed. It's the most traffic piece of pavement on the airport as far as the taxiway is concerned. And it links the north side of the airfield to the south side and somewhat to the east side of the airfield. It is used every single day, thousands of times a year. And during AirVenture, this is probably the most used piece of pavement. Anybody that lands on runway 27 is going to the south. Typically will traverse taxiway Alpha or potentially runway 31. And kind of the converse of anybody landing on the big runway to the north. It is a vital piece of pavement, one that hasn't been reconstructed since 1967. So that's 1967 concrete. We've gotten our life out of it. I know our staff, but point to Jason, but Pete Roush before him had been doing a great job with our guys of band-aiding it, doing little pieces of it that blow out and need to be re-poured, but it's getting worse and worse as the years go on. So that is to say, we're really wanting to kickstart the design of the reconstruction of taxiway Alpha this year. We fully believe that it will be a straight shot as it is now. It'll be slightly realigned because when we reconstructed taxiway Alpha, we pushed that out 10 feet to the east. And when we reconstructed this piece, actually, a couple of years prior to the last project, we pushed that out also just to give, as taxiway Alpha down here is used as a third runway during AirVenture, give it more distance. So a slight realignment, but a straight north and south shot on taxiway Alpha. And then also, we still need to again flesh out exactly how these taxiway configurations are going to be. Could you clarify what the alignment is? It's just moving it 10 feet because if you go down taxiway Alpha here and then cross over, it jogs 10 feet to the west on the center line. And then once you get down to here, it jogs back that 10 feet to the east. Okay, still talk about 16 feet. All right. Well, that's again one of those things we'll flesh out during the design process. That portion is not used as a runway. So the 60-foot width that the taxiway was reconstructed on the south end was aimed at its use as a runway during AirVenture. We'll push for 60 feet, but the FAA has kind of already pushed back and said,
I'm sure
that's going to be a tough zone.
It's a two-way taxi. Yeah. And the distance we're having aircraft transitioning north and south in the same people.
So we'll certainly are going to push for 60 feet, and those are definitely very viable reasons to bring up to the FAA, and we will do that. But until we get the design work actually formally started, those are just concepts at this point in time. So this request is for our share of the design work on this project of the reconstruction of taxiway Alpha. We are anticipating FAA grant assistance on the project, again, in the same splits as the prior year's project, at 90% FAA, 5% state, 5% county. Right now, our best estimate on the design costs is around $300,000, of which 5% will be $15,000. So, again, very important piece of pavement to get reconstructed. We're trying to align ourselves well with what they call FAA discretionary funding, at least into 2024, so that we can get the momentum started to not only have the design work done, but get the funding authorization from the FAA, because we are anticipating it being $3 to $3.5 million project, depending on where everything is reconstructed in there. So with that, we'll be giving another presentation at the February meeting of the special orders meeting of the county board. And then the rest of the capital project requests, just as the other departments of the county are coming to the county board this year for 2023 projects. So at this point, the request is for $15,000, which is our anticipated county share of the design work for the project. And I would say this is the presentation for them. Agenda item.
John?
Yeah, Jim, is the exo portion that's on there, is that part of this plan? Is that removal or?
So this is one of the portions of our airfield alternatives in the master plan that's pretty well vetted and pretty well established, that we're trying to reduce the amount of intersection or the amount of taxiways and runway intersections that all come into this 5-way intersection and the various different angles. So that's one of the alternatives. That's why it's just shown on this conceptual diagram as closed and removed, correct? Okay. But that is a turn of taxiway Juliet to make taxiway Alpha at a 90-degree angle at that intersection, and to reduce the amount of pieces of payment that all come together in that.
I have no questions. I would need a,
What are the agenda items?
yeah, yeah,
That's all right.
yeah. Okay, let's move on to item E, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Our second capital project request for 2023. Cameron's pulling a couple of pictures up on the screen now. They're also included in your committee packet as well. But this expenditure would allow us to acquire one plow / dump truck vehicle that will replace 2 existing airport trucks, fleet vehicles. And the new vehicle would replace what we call number 54, which is the one at the top, the 1980 GMC Brigadier dump truck. And number 8, which is a 2000 GMC 3500 pickup truck, typically with some plow with a
Salter, yeah.
So the idea behind this project is to acquire one vehicle that can do both tasks a little bit more efficiently, and also upgrade our fleet, a little bit more modern equipment. And obviously, as you see, the 1980 is fairly long in the tooth. It's got its limitations for sure. I see a couple of nods back at the back. Our guys are the ones that drive these trucks every time we go out and do things like snow removal and those sorts of things. The summer use would primarily be for landscaping and hauling dirt and gravel. Winter use is plowing snow, spreading salt on our access roads, in our parking lot at the terminal, and then various other parking lots that we own around the airfield, around the airport. Specs of a comparable vehicle would be a Ford F600 series. I've got all those listed out in the memo as far as the 22,000 pound payload package, 4-wheel drive, the engine specs. That's the type of vehicle we're looking to acquire. Of course, we would put this out for RFP. Should we be successful in gaining the funding to acquire this vehicle? And our estimate is putting it at about 110,000 right now, Jason's. So we're taking a look at this would be pretty in depth, with another 10 to 15,000 after for outfitting with lights, airfield radios, the paint that we typically use, decals, those sorts of things. So really the justification as these 2 vehicles have over time become obviously have aged and then have become very costly to maintain, and really don't offer the efficiencies and the abilities that a new vehicle can offer. The other benefit of this is we would be replacing these 2 vehicles and relinquishing these 2 vehicles. We would go down to 1 vehicle, so we would reduce our fleet size by 1. Helps with things like maintenance, just as the routine maintenance of having more vehicles than less, and obviously the maintenance costs of the old vehicles. So with that, the capital request, should it be approved, at the committee level today. We'll be going forward through the rest of the process for an acquisition of a new plow truck to replace these two at a cost of $140,000.
You're gonna get at the board meeting, they're gonna ask you, are you going to sell the other two? Cause they were asking that about 30-year-old radios last night. So if they're gonna ask that about a 30-year-old radio last night, they're gonna ask you if you're gonna resell these suckers.
Correct.
I would put that in your presentation so that you avoid those questions, and make our meeting shorter.
Yep.
Please, what?
Can you sell it? Or do they have to go through some county?
Yeah, we could put them on Wisconsin public surplus.
Because I'm thinking somebody, not somebody, some entity might, they look like they've been. They don't look like they've been abused. I get the age thing and I get that, but maybe a small municipality, maybe an individual.
Yeah.
Landscaping guy or something.
Definitely
would
put that
have-
in there.
But you can be in charge of that. We don't have to have county board approval to sell
I'll just check the place that do snow removal.
Yeah.
Because especially with the salter, they didn't make parking lots.
Just please put that in the presentation, is all I ask.
that. Yeah, wait.
Please, please, please.
Okay.
I'm kind of curious about the paint. You can't just order yellow.
Yeah, we probably could.
Oh,
Is the estimate you have there, is that recent?
It's what I found online for a comparable F600.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I would say within the last month.
I was on a lot this weekend, and like F-150s are like that same price.
Yeah, well, that's like a decked out premium, most work trucks are, you got a chassis that's around 40,000-50,000 and then the other stuff that goes on it.
You don't have, and I know we could ask this question on the other things. You don't have to go through a state vehicle purchasing thing, yeah.
They have a state contract, the F600, which would more likely fit our bill for the size in between both of those. I don't see it on the state contract, so I'd have to look into that more to see if there's another option. So we can follow.
Oh. Okay, we'll move on to item 4, discuss and approve a capital project to design the final phase of reconstructing taxiway. Anybody have any other questions that they want to ask?
Approve the capital project, design the final phase of reconstruction taxiway.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any more discussion, any more questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? Item 5, discuss and approve a capital project to replace an airport plow truck.
Approved.
Motion been made. Second. And seconded. Any discussion on this one? All those in favor?
Bye.
Right. Item 6, discuss and approve a hangar lease renewal L809C between Tracy Noah and Winnebago County.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. This is a 3-year hangar lease for county-owned L809C, which is across the taxiway from Newview, along the Taxiway Hotel near Wings and Seagulls, Ben Jacobs, Dr. Mann. There's a triplex of hangars there that we own. This is C. It's a heated storage hangar. It's just shy of 1,400 square feet. And the hangar rate is set to match the neighbor hangars at $402.45 per month. And that increases annually with the change in CPIU. The term is going to be February 1st of 23 until January 31st of 26. The hangar rental is $402.45 per month plus tax. And we request that you approve this airport hangar lease for L809C between Tracy Nowak and Winnebago County.
Move to approve those.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. My only discussion on this from me personally. This rent is gonna be cheaper than renting one of the new hangars with each. No, no.
We're projecting the new hangars to be about 350. And set that.
And then plus heat after that.
Plus utilities, but this kind of thing.
Okay, all right. Just checking. Any other discussion on this one?
Just because I know somebody's gonna ask this when it gets to the board. These are all in line with everything that you've done for readjusting rates and that and whatnot.
This one isn't part of the ordinance rate. This is separate, and so these have just been, I don't know, the previous airport management set the initial price, and these have just been going up with the inflation, basically with CPIU.
Just because I know that's gonna get asked. It's the board.
They're in line with, similar size and type of hangars that are outlined in the ordinance.
Good point. All right, all those in favor of approving this lease renewal?
All right.
Aye. Item 7, operations and maintenance report. Jason?
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you. First, I'd like to introduce the guys that work for us. That's like half of the airport back there. You got Ed, who's our mechanic, equipment operator Zach, future equipment operator 2 Chris, and next to him also future equipment operator 2 Dan, and then Robert. So, said was doing this morning, so you can see what the other half of our airport is.
So we got everybody here then?
Yes, everybody that works here, the whole staff.
Definitely not snowing today.
In addition to that, some of the things we worked on in the month of December, leading up to today was the I-2 hangar. We got that ready for a new tenant. And then in the slideshow, there'll be some pictures. We took the flooring out, replaced the flooring. Those guys back there did all the work and they did a tremendous job, so. Also, we had the unfortunate water main or water leak at the tower last month. It was a part of the sprinkler system, 1.25 inch elbow broke due to the freezing weather. And then it thawed, and then that's what caused the rupture. It looks like the blower fan behind one of the heaters in the column that rises up to the tower cab there was not working, and that's probably why it got cold in there. Acquire restoration was in. They're currently still, they have some equipment in there. They were able to drill holes in all the baseboards and air that out. Jim and I were there till like 2 in the morning, sucking up the water. We got the call at about 9:30-ish that Wednesday night, I think. Water, according to the fire department, water was pouring out the doors when they opened. So that's a lot of water, and probably maybe 20 minutes that was just flowing freely in there, right above the elevator. So that whole ceiling there collapsed in, and then yeah, so we could have some future moisture issues there, possibly with some of the electronics, but hopefully everything dries out well. And lastly, just snow removal. We've had a pretty snowy month in December. I have some reports that show on the airport, we only got 5.8 inches for the month of December. But during that Christmas storm where we had all the wind, it wasn't even showing any accumulation. The wind or the snow was blowing sideways most of the time. And our guys were in chasing our tails, as they say, and trying to catch up with the drifts that would just reoccur the next day and
Next day, next hour.
yeah, very much.
A lot of traffic on them.
Thankfully, there wasn't a lot of traffic, but just still do our best to keep it open in case somebody wants to move around. That's all I have.
Any questions from anybody?
I just have another comment. With that moisture, I would take extra care with that because we're already having mold issues in another county facility. And we don't want to hear, have that happen again because once it's in, you're pretty screwed.
Yeah, I agree. So they're in there with their moisture testers, and we had that long New Year's Eve break or New Year's Day break, 4 or 5 days. Nobody was in there, and just the fans were going the whole time. And it looks like things are drying out well. Luckily, we were able to get most of the water cleaned up that night, and so it wasn't really saturated. It didn't have a lot of time to just sit there and saturate through the drywall.
Insurance covered the entirety of that, correct? Even because it was a fan?
It
Issue?
depends on the threshold of what the insurance is, but it looks like it will probably come in under that, but they're still gonna be be made aware of how much money was spent on it.
Pretty large.
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, yeah. I'm-
25,000.
I believe it's 25,000.
So if it rises above that level, yes, but I think we're gonna be.
Well, you'll make it to the insurance level, then.
What's that?
You won't even make it to the insurance level.
Yeah, we'll consult with Joel Luke, who's the county risk manager. Figure out what the best course of action, but we believe that it would work going over that route.
Thank you guys for 2:30 in the morning. It might have been like easy for you because you got a new baby, but. Maybe.
You go 24/7.
But seriously, thank you guys. That was a big deal. I mean, I'm sure it would have probably hit the 25,000 mark if you guys hadn't been there. You guys.
We're trying to avoid the bull.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because,
so
right
thank
off the
you.
bat, we gotta get.
Yep.
Contract in there to remediate, moisture.
Jim had a smile on his face the whole night.
Yeah.
This means changing diapers.
Thank you very much, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, item 8, EAA report. I see Sean is here. And Jim.
Really, nothing, Jim, I was just discussing, nothing, we since last month, still working with our three staff members and gelling together. We got some Quizdo highly interview at the end of this month for everybody, sure that, that everything is coming along. I'm very happy with the talent that we brought together on board and before I do great job.
Anything from you, Jim? You're good? Thank you. I don't really have anything for the chairman's report other than thanks for doing what you did at Solar. I think that was beyond what you had to do, but as you know, the airport doing so. Appreciate it.
It was all jokes.
So
I just showed up to,
help.
sure.
All right. Do you want to do a thing now?
Yeah. All right, so something new this year, Cameron and Jason and I talked about this a while back, and one of the things we're always doing in addition to our daily duties, we're always taking pictures. And then, sometimes as all of our lives, you take those pictures on your phone, most likely, and then they sit somewhere, and maybe you go back and you look at them, but you only are the one looking at them. You might send them to a couple of people. They don't really get out there as much as, they used to. We don't go print out pictures as much as we used to, and we didn't print off any pictures for today, but we got a lot of things going on at the airport. You might hear about it. This is here for everybody in the room. You might hear about them. We might talk about them. We don't always necessarily see them. So we thought we'd put together a little end of year slideshow, photos that all the staff have taken over the past 12 months, and kind of compose that into showing everybody what we've been doing. I'll say I probably take the most photos. I take pictures of everything. I take pictures of the food I eat sometimes. I'll admit that. But I take pictures of everything that I can think of. I'm thinking, hey, at some point we should put together one of these. And Cameron and Jason came together and said, hey, we should really do one of these. So with that, we're going to just narrate. We'll probably go fairly quickly through this. We're going to narrate as we go. We'll take turns. I'm going to hand it off to Jason.
So this is our oldest hangar, the old Basler hangar. We just repainted this one to make it look a little more aesthetically pleasing, even though it's falling apart terribly. This is on the perimeter road. We had the highway department come in. We had a pretty nasty hump in there, or I should say. They came in and pulled out the asphalt and repaved it. Same with this section over here, which is to the north. Oh, sorry. I'm a little, okay, gotcha. So this area right here is just to the northeast, northwest, I should say, of that old Basler hangar. And it was just gravel through here. Later on, we hope to pave this section back here. That was earlier, the year right before AirVenture, I believe. And then with Cameron's help, we got a contract to get a painter in for the A, B, and C hangars. This is Mike Johnson painting right here. Then this is what they look like afterwards. This is the 24-hour fuel pump area back in here. And then on the other side of the fence, this is where the light column is. We're still working on the electrical due to the hazardous area with the fuel and everything to get that correct with code. But this is the guys putting in the sonotube and pouring the concrete for that. This is the replacement of the tower windows. Had 2 cranes set up. Actually, 1 crane and 1 man basket right here. And that's that guy. He's about 150 feet up in that basket right there. So he's got some pretty solid nerves. Picture of adventure and all of the lights that were kind of taken out by aircraft that departed where they maybe shouldn't have, or some of these were involved in aircraft mishaps also. So we try to do a lot in taking these and restoring them so we can reuse them.
Just out of curiosity, I know they're termed frangible.
Yeah.
Where do they actually break?
That's a good point, or a good question. So this right here slides inside the column, and then this portion right here is what actually snaps.
Okay.
These right here are reconstructed, ready to go back in, but then it'll snap just off of that right there. So it's just an aluminum piece that has a groove inside of it, and that's the weak point that breaks off.
Got it. I think we part of it, like a little bit of base.
Yeah, for those.
Nothing really over it is protected any of we're like not a sleeve. Okay.
If you'd like to see them, I can turn the grab on that.
Oh, no, I'm good.
It's no problem. They made great answers.
Yeah, they're good. Sell them.
Perfect for Halloween.
My husband brought home the engine from an ocean that they made sure.
Jason, are those considered like?
Normally, we just get notified that there's a light down, yeah, and the frangible piece is pretty, it's not very expensive, it's we'll have to go back and reconstruct the light and then reinstall it, so there's some time involved there. This is our crew over at the I-2 hangar. This is the floor before we ripped that out and then used some laminate vinyl flooring to replace it. So you gotta get out of Zoom, re-click on PowerPoint for things. Get the teams work down here.
Sorry about that technology. So one of the things back in April, one of the things that I've heard this asked before, do you cooperate with other airports being, Oshkosh, Appleton, Fond du Lac, Wapaka, whoever, in the immediate vicinity typically. Central Wisconsin, we've had some assistance from in the past. Do you cooperate with other airports? And the question is, or the answer is yes. Depending on what it is, depending on what we're able to assist with. And one of the things that we did this year, back in March, April timeframe, the Appleton Airport, about 25 miles north of here. Of course, everybody knows about the Appleton Airport, but Outagamie County came and picked up our fire truck. And why they did that is because one of their large fire trucks, which looks a lot like our 2009 Oshkosh Striker vehicle, went down for maintenance, like catastrophic maintenance. And so they actually have two trucks, and the truck that went down was their backup truck. But as you can imagine, if something then happened to their primary crash truck, they would have no ARF coverage for all their airline flights going in and out of that airport. And actually, they cover all of their airline flights with one truck, meets their actual index, FAA approved or published index that they have to be referred to, which is just the amount of water and foam and everything that they need to carry in order to meet that index. So we actually loaned Appleton Airport for a fee, of course, to get revenue from this. Our 2009 Striker, as we do have a backup 1,500 gallon truck, which is a 1986, but it is fully functional. Thank you, Ed. Thank you, all the guys that worked on that. So we had our backup truck in good working order. Our firefighters love to use it because it's 1986, right? Doesn't have all the creature comforts, but it's certainly functional. And use that to kind of maintain our coverage here. Loaned our Striker to the Appleton Airport for about 2 months. So we received $5,000 a month in revenue, which is pretty much the going rate if you're going to rent a either a privately owned fire truck from a company or elsewhere. And in this case, saved them a whole lot of shipping costs because most of those companies that rent out these trucks are not near here. They're in South Carolina, Nevada, other places. And what we found in issues trying to do that, to look into that, is the shipping costs are crazy. So they were able to come down and get it with their county folks and transport it up there. And then right before AirVenture, 1st of June, we got it back so our fire crews could start prepping the truck, refamiliarizing themselves all with it, and all the training that we do for the event. So it worked out well to loan it to them for a couple of months. It pretty much got them all the way through until they got their backup truck up and running. So switching gears here a little bit, our aviation business park and the airport in general, what we're doing to promote that. One of the things that we did and have done for the last several years is the Chamber's Business to Business Expo. They held that in April of this past year, and a theme was Night at the Movies. So if you can guess who we're supposed to be, especially with the sequel coming out this year or last year. We had a little bit of fun with it. We tried to have a little bit of fun as well, just doing our jobs, but we enjoyed that. That was definitely a big hit. And so we had a lot of giveaways, a lot of raffle prizes, a lot of information about the airport, and information about lots of things that we're doing, lots of our tenants, what they offer, and those sorts of things. Another thing that we worked on this year was the rebranding of the Aviation Business Park with our partners at Go EDC, and Patricia's in the room, and Quilt Creative, who did the rebranding. This is the new monument sign that was placed in the business park like mid to late last year. As we talked about at the last meeting, these are those promotional boxes that we put together, again, with the help of Go EDC and Quilt Creative and our staff, putting quite a lot of hours into this. I think I talked about that a little bit last year, but just not only going through to the development of the graphics that were going to go in the box and the products, but then, all the execution of what we found out is putting these stickers on the boxes is not just like I couldn't tint my windows in high school on my car. It's not super easy to get straight and without bubbles. And we found out Kathy from Trisha's staff is like an expert at this. And as well as Cameron, put those all those boxes together. So we've gotten quite a few assembled. So we're working on getting those put out right now after the first year. We had a bigger and better booth than we ever have had. This is the second year of a partnership with Go EDC. And now this year we brought in the city of Oshkosh and the Convention and Visitors Bureau. So we had a 10-foot by 40-foot long booth at AirVenture. So we each had our portion of the booth. Down here on the end is the airport side. Kind of right here in the middle is the Visitors Bureau. Go EDC and then the Visitors Bureau. And so we had staff from all of our different entities, the airport, Go EDC, Visitors Bureau, and the city, rotating through to staff our booth. One of the things that the Visitors Bureau did this year was writing a postcard from Oshkosh and then mailing it for you. I forget, we got more than 2,000 people doing that. Almost 3,000 people doing that. So we were a big hit this year. We're trying to grow that partnership each and every year. And these are just kind of a couple of pieces of our promo items that we give away that Cameron has designed and executed. So if you haven't got a pair of socks yet, I can see it's after the actually $25, right? Under 20, Same vein, but shifting gears a little bit, Cameron and I attended MRO Americas, which MRO stands for Maintenance, Repair, and Overhaul. This is just one slide on that. I took quite a number of pictures, most of them probably boring. But what this is kind of depicting is these are other airports out there at conventions like this that are working on business development. So well, we have our booth during AirVenture, and that's kind of a new thing in the last couple of years for the airport having their own booth and partnering with our various different agencies. These are airports going out and displaying, what they have to offer, their business development initiatives at different trade shows. Wichita, has anybody heard of Wichita and what happens there as far as aviation? It's major, right? So Wichita's got quite the setup, as you would imagine. But then other airports, it's just kind of a snapshot of some other airports, what they're doing. This is airport, I believe, in Louisiana, yes. And we talked to them. This is, I think, a redeveloped former military installation. It's unbelievable what they've done down there. And so you can see, all the major hangars. And so just a little bit of a tidbit of what's going on out there at the MRO convention and others.
All right, so this was an event we hosted. It was set up by the State Bureau of Aeronautics in the spring. They hosted the Fox Cities Trauma Task Force, or that's their name or something like it. It's a group of volunteer firefighters, paramedics, and police officers that coordinate with each other to prepare for a disaster that expands beyond the city, beyond the county. So these are people from all over the Fox Valley, first responders from all over the Fox Valley. Came out to learn about aircraft accidents, what to watch for if they were to respond to one. So we had the Theta Care helicopter there. And then two of our tenants brought planes over and stood by them and talked about the dangers on board small aircraft, including not pictured here, but a Cirrus with the ballistic parachute. All the first responders are very interested in that because that is a unique hazard they may have to face if they were to respond to that type of aircraft accident. So even though it was rainy that day, we had about 50 first responders out here, about 10 volunteers to learn about aircraft safety. So don't need to spend a whole lot of time on Volatus. We just talked about them and where they're at, but this was their press conference this past year where they announced that they were going to bring the first vertiport for eVTOLs here to Oshkosh, first in the US. And so that was the press conference, attracted some media. Our county executive came, gave a talk, and then we got Brent, the founder of Volatus there. All right, so moving on to snow. Some of these pictures are from last winter, some of them are from the Christmas storm. But just want to give you an idea of what the airfield looks like during a storm. These are some night photos, some major drifts here. So these drifts are over a foot high, and this is from a 2-inch storm. So it gives you an idea. We don't have a lot of trees, just like the highways out of town. Drifts build up fast, and they end up being more intense than the snowfall would make it think. We do have an operator that flies almost every single night, every single morning. That's Pack Air. So overnight UPS packages come on Pack Air, and they're coming into this airport. So we do keep the airport open for anybody that wants to use it, but they're the ones who use it all the time. So we're here working at night to allow them to, so they don't have to divert somewhere else. Some daytime shots, upper right and lower left corner. This are from the Christmas Day storm that just kept blowing and blowing and blowing. The visibility is actually good if it weren't for the wind blowing the snow. So all this, what looks like fog, is just snow blowing around. And our guys were out here for 4 days in a row cleaning that up. Ed in the back takes care of this. This is probably the nicest blower in all of Wisconsin. It's got a special engine in the back because we're friends with our neighbors here at Oshkosh Corp. What would you call it? An experimental engine, Ed? Something like that, but it's an awesome blower. And it creates really cool photos. Something also unique about us is we use, these are kind of considered old school rollover plows, and they allow us to cast the snow way off to the side of the runway. So if we have the right depth of snow and the right weight of snow, We don't even have to use the blower. We can blow it safely over the lights without knocking the frangible lights over. And that's an example of most of them. Yeah, that's when you're driving.
I don't like you that. I don't know that.
Yeah, so these are reserved for our experts in the back there. But this gives you.
How fast is that going?
Maybe about 45.
Like that.
Yeah. We're not worried about mailboxes like in the county road there.
It's professional driver.
I'm sorry, but I remember I told you when the airlines used to come to the old airport, I used to be out on those runways testing them because nobody was here after 10 o'clock at night. So it wasn't professional drivers on close quarters. I was just out there going 70 in a little Toyota.
Cameron, I think we should put little white kill signs on the side of the truck.
So some other examples of our equipment, this is very specialty equipment here. It's our big Oshkosh broom. And so if we have dry snow, it's the kind of snow where you can't really make a snowball with, and it's not too deep, the broom works perfectly because it'll clean it right down to the concrete, where the plow may pack it down and still make the runway a little bit slick. So when we have those dry snowstorms, we bring out the broom, and that's an example of
Is
that.
that a new broom? Can we get a new broom?
I think it's from 2016, 2014, well, 2012.
That is old new.
Okay. Pretty new.
Still works. It's really great. Yeah, both the blue room, the blower makes and the new blower.
It was really cold that day.
That was like -5. Back to warm weather.
Yes, we're in the springtime now.
So these pictures are just prior to Air Venture, when we have Robert out there painting. He's our newfound expert painter, which requires a lot of patience, a lot of attention to detail. And it's kind of a monotonous job. But if you do it well, it turns out really good. And it's kind of nice to look
Was
at.
Robert a painter when he started, or he's learning? how
I
to
don't
paint?
tell us what your hobby is, Robert.
I'm a craftsman,
Yeah.
so I make decoys and stuff, so I spend a lot of time in paint.
Cool.
Yeah.
Is the requisite OCD between management.
And then the bottom picture here is afterwards, when we have to put down the solution to loosen the paint, then pressure wash it all off, which takes a considerable amount of time. Also, before Air Venture, well, here's some of Robert's work with the temporary paint and making runway 36 right, which used to be taxiway Alpha a day prior to this, turning that into a runway. And we got Dan and Chris changing out all of the signs so we can indicate that we have two runways, two parallel runways. Oh, back to Cameron.
Oh, gee. Okay, so we've all seen Air Venture photos. These were some of our favorites that came from our phones during the event. Of course, this makes for magical photos, no matter who's taking the picture. Beautiful sunset or sunrise, no matter which one is sunset. Photo of the hot air balloons doing that. This is my favorite picture on the whole lot when we were making this. This is Kim. She, the whole week, is sitting at the desk because our lobby, obviously, you can imagine, is busier than any other time of year. There's constantly at least 50 people in here. Everybody wants to come say hi, ask questions. And so that's Kim doing her thing with Aero Shell performing in the background. Thought that was an amazing photo. Jim took that. Very cool. And then at the beginning of the event, we had the storm that came through that could have been a lot worse, that wasn't. And Pack Air graciously loaned out the use of their hangar to store the two F-35s that needed to be protected. Some highly valuable assets there.
F-35 first test that we had any hangar space. No, so Pack Air came in as they have before and really sit with things. So
Just some airplane shots. These are the airplanes we thought were cool that came in. We enjoyed seeing. It's always good to see a King Air F-90 in the grass taxiing around. So that was cool. This is Jared Isaacson, MiG-29, which is incredibly rare to be flying around here in the United States, privately owned MiG-29. And then the largest airplane in our US military fleet, the C-5. And so Jim snapped that shot from the perimeter road as it cleaned off our runway pretty well. This bottom piece here is this is taken in front of our maintenance shop. We rent out our shop to the fireworks guys. So they have a covered area in case it were to rain, so they can store their fireworks on the back of flatbed semis. And so they kind of take over, they park their campers over there. And they wrote this for our guys. Thank you for sharing your space, because of course our guys are over there too, still trying to do their work during the week. So this is our first time doing the honor flight in this building. Last year, even though this building was open, we still had the old terminal. So that makes it real easy to bring in 180 plus people to board an airliner to do the honor flight. And so through a lot of coordination with the TSA, with EAA and the honor flight folks, we made this a very successful event. Not only do we need to just fit 180 plus people, a lot of them have disabilities, they're older, so we have to find places for them to sit. And so this is them getting ready to board their flight. Here's the American bus getting ready to go with John Daniel standing there. And then when they arrived later that evening, used our fire trucks to shoot a water arch over, which is traditionally for pilots retiring. They do that on their last flights, but of course, this is a tradition with honor flight to do this as they arrive back to their home airport. This was another kind of last minute deal. We were expecting or not expecting them, and then they showed up. But this is Delta. This is their A330-900 airplane and the Team USA paint. And a little story. We just wanted to share the story about how a bunch of people came together to solve a problem during the event. Here we've got some EAA volunteers, as well as some Delta employees, looking at what's hard to tell, but there was a hydraulic leak. This set of air stairs was brought over with the airplane, and it leaked hydraulic fluid all the way from the show center over to, this is in front of the terminal here on Taxiway Bravo. And so we can't have hydraulic fluid splashing up on planes taxiing over, it's corrosive. And so we all got together, including our maintenance team in the back there, to use our broom and use some of our equipment to clean up the hydraulic fluid. Yes, a whole lot of kitty litter / floor dry to clean that up. So that was good because everybody worked together and nobody got upset, and it all worked out and took care of it. I thought this was really cool. So this is just out east of the building here, just right out here. So it's a tradition that all the locals for the Night Air Show that don't want to pay to get in will come and sit in our field for free. And so as long as we don't have hangars there, I don't think there's any way we're going to stop them, because there's probably 1,500 cars in that field. No incidents that I know of. Everybody's peaceful. People set up tents and chairs and cook out. And so I just thought that was neat to see all those people there to watch the Night Air Show, all the local people. I'll let Jim tell this story because he was actually the first responder on this one.
Is this your slide?
Yep, but I'll tell the next one since you responded for this.
So actually, Kim and I were out this Thursday before our venture got started. Kind of a weird day where we're just getting going, and you know, we're remembering how to do things from the 12 months prior that we hadn't done the event. And Kim and I were driving around the south end of the airfield, out along the perimeter, and I was kind of showing her, because you know, fairly new as far as her being here for a venture as one of our employees. Showing her everybody that had already gotten here, kind of how things work. And when we come around the perimeter, we see an aircraft coming in. It's kind of, you know, the wings are rocking a little bit, gusty, breezy day. And from a distance, I can tell it's just any airplane. And I've seen this, of course, on static display at our venture a number of times. It's here every year. This is a 3rd scale model of a B-17. And so my vehicle is in the background there. Here's our airport loader. If this was a full-size B-17, that loader wouldn't look so large. It is pretty big, and my vehicle wouldn't also look that big. But Needless to say, it came over and Kim was trying to get her phone out and it flew over way before she could get a picture or video. I said, just enjoy it, you know. So it flew right over our heads and it went down to the end of the, or got down to just touching the runway and we watched that and then we just kept driving. And then a few minutes later, one of our tenants actually gave me a call on my cell phone. Because I just actually went by his house over there. One of our tenants, our neighbors, he's like, are you gonna get over there? And I'm like, get over where? He's like, well, that plane that just landed just had an accident between the runways. I was like, oh, really? Did it? Well, normally the first call would be from the air traffic control tower to all of the first responders. Primarily, the first one is the airport's fire department. Then we might get a call either from the control tower or the fire department. At this time, it came from one of our tenants. And so one of the things was a bit of a communication breakdown of Tim and I showing up. This gentleman was already outside of the airplane. He was fine. There were no fuel leaking, so really no fire danger at that point in time. But fire department showed up right shortly thereafter. But this plane, of course, had a mishap. One of a kind, the only one of its kind in the world. And so had a mishap coming in AirVenture. We don't like to talk about that. We don't really publicize this much, but these are the kind of weird, different situations we find ourselves in, usually not with a third scale model V17. But this just kind of again shows how everybody comes together. EAA, Myers Aviation, our staff with our loader and our picking hooks and straps and getting it back on its feet and then towed away. So that's Myers truck, which Myers Aviation during the event, I think we talked a little bit about. They're huge for us as far as moving aircraft that do have an incident or an accident and getting them off the airfield and getting everything cleaned up. But there's probably no other time they're ever going to see their truck hooked up to a third scale model V17. At least we hope not. So the gentleman was okay that was flying it. Of course, that's not how he wants to make his entrance. But we came together and got it taken care of. A couple others.
The plane is still here with the fuel that's in the chapter 252 hangar.
Yes,
Correct.
so a couple of others. This is the L19. So it's the L19 that had a bit of an issue on landing. It's a tailwheel aircraft. It was a very gusty kind of crosswind day. It landed on the parallel runway, which is taxiway Alpha, which is again only 60 feet wide. But I believe had a bit of a ground loop and then exited off. The taxiway's over here, but exited off the pavement through a little bit of a drainage swale and came to rest that way. One of the things that happened with this is not only did we respond to this again. The gentleman was okay, which is always the main thing. But then as we're dealing with this, no sooner than this happened, about 15 minutes later, as we're still on scene, our fire department and all the other agencies, we had an incident on runway 927. So that's pretty rare, but it expected to close the airport for at least about 15 minutes. Half of the crews responded up to the reported incident on 927. It sounded like it turned out to be, more. It was less than what it had initially been reported out to be, but it did close us down for about 15 to 20 minutes, which creates a big traffic snarl, a big issue up in the skies, aircraft having to hold. So this is that incident, kind of switching gears, leaving on a high note. Really what it's all about for us as our staff and our tenants and all that is the people. And so Kim was gracious enough to model her beautiful fur coat with the glasses I told her to wear. So I snapped a picture of this thinking I am going to put this in the slideshow in the time.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Cameron, Cameron orchestrated, and Jason and the guys orchestrated a big photo, which we'll see in a second. Cameron orchestrated a big photo shoot out on the runway. Runway 1836. We wanted to get a new staff photo, and he was instrumental, along with all the guys, bringing all the equipment out there and staging it and listening to all his instructions as they, put it in the exact right spot that he wanted it. But he was the mastermind behind getting up also on the lift with his photo camera equipment and snapping the picture, which we'll show here in a minute. This is a photo I happened to take. Of course, not only our employees, but their families come out quite often during their venture. This happens to be Zach and his family watching, I think it's F-18 land right there. And I just thought it was a cool moment. He didn't know I was taking the picture probably there, but you know, just capturing, you know, everyone's enjoyment of that week. So a little bit different gear here. We had a Winnebago County Family Night back this past summer. And one of the ideas for, I think we raised a little bit of money for charity, but one of the ideas was getting all the department heads in the county to sign up to get a pie in the face. And so each department head had a box and people put in their slip, they get one and they could buy extra. And some department heads had a lot of slips in their box. I was fortunate enough to only have like 5 or 6 slips in my box. And all of them were, except for John, I believe, all of them were employees except for John Hens. Thankfully, I didn't draw his name. We were allowed to draw it random. The day we had it all
over the top. There's a little height difference there.
So we were allowed to draw at random which name, who's gonna pass in the face, and I drew Cameron. Well, what I didn't realize, and I'm like, oh, yeah, it's Cameron, you know, we're good, you know, no big deal. We are good, but however, I didn't realize he's 6'6" and I'm 5'10", so he went right up over the top. So that was a lot of fun. I think everybody had a good time with it, and it was an awesome event that the county executive and our staff put on for the whole county employees. Again, this is one that Cameron insisted including in the slideshow. Me looking too cool for school or something at the business expo. And then this one, so I don't know if you noticed last month, but Jason showed up in this get up and well, spit out my breakfast when I saw it. But he told me several months back when I said during our committee meetings, we all must wear a tie, the 3 of us. He said, well, the only way I'm going to wear, I believe I'm quoting this right. The only way I'm going to wear a tie is if I can show up as Dwight Schrute. Is that right? Maybe Cameron. But either way, if you're familiar with The Office, he decided to do his best Dwight Schrute impersonation, and I must say it is very good, all the way down to Casio, like 1980. I think Cameron wanted to make fun of his sticky note obsession. One of the things that we want to do this year was a bit of a team building. We're trying to do at least one of these per year now with our whole staff. I thought, hey, what better team building? We're all off the clock, by the way. So for the risk manager of the county, we're all off the clock, by the way, on our own time. Were we on the clock? It doesn't really matter. Right down the road here is a place called Blades and Boards, and if you haven't been, I think we all thought it was just amazing thing. So your axe throwing. We all have different little games we could play. There's kind of like the score sheet. We found who's good at throwing axes and we found who's not good at throwing axes. I won't say which is which, but it was a lot of fun. I would certainly encourage it if you are looking to do like a team building or just a group thing with your family or whoever it is, friends. So that was a lot of fun. I had to throw this in there. Believe it or not, we do some eating around here. We don't always take pictures of the eating. Usually we take pictures, I take pictures of the food. But we took a candid photo. Of course, no one's looking and no one knows taking the picture. I do that a fair amount, but eating over here in the garage, a little cookout we had this past summer. One of the things that I did with a lot of new county board members this past April, May timeframe was took a new round of mostly new county board members, but also Jeff and I believe Kobe's in one of these, and some newer committee members that hadn't been on the full tour. Took them around, for instance, like Myers Aviation here. That's Nate at Myers, explaining to a new county board member all the things about what they do. Sonics, again, same thing. Fox Valley Tech and their flight training program, and then Vasper Turbo Conversions. But really just getting folks out again, just much like we're showing all these photos of things that happened the last year in our perspective, showing them the businesses on the airport primarily and the things that are going on a daily basis. I'll let you explain this photo.
I felt worth all the time. Oh, yeah, this is the group photo. We didn't really have a group photo. We wanted one for the website. Every other airport I've worked at would do this, show off their equipment and their people. And so we felt we wanted to do it. So everybody that's in this photo, except for the guy in the red, he's one of our seasonals that comes back every year. And Steve, everybody else is here in the room.
And they said, they told me Christmas, dress festive. And then I stood next to Steve because he had read on.
That's it.
That's a cool one. On your next slide, you can be a photographer. No.
We're thinking of JLG though. But
Thank you for bearing with us. I know it's
not a huge-
totally interesting, but hopefully we lost a few. We lost a couple.
Okay, item 10, committee member statements, suggestions, items for future agenda. Anybody have anything? If you do, at any point in time before the next meeting, bring it to us. Item 11, set next meeting date. I want to make sure we have it on the first because we have special orders on the 7th and maybe we don't want to be here after the long meeting. So if we can do the 1st of February.
Yeah, and we have a personnel and finances, actually, we're doing it on the 8th,
Okay,
that Wednesday, so.
Okay.
the First works a lot better.
Okay.
That's okay.
good. Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion been made, seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn, thank you.
You get it straight right this week. Yeah. Sorry.
Appreciate you all bearing with us. A lot of fun putting that together.
Oh, yeah, we got a great battle.
That's.
I
was against Jason.
I remember I holidays, I saw.